History books love to tell technology as a one-way street. Things get invented, improved, and passed down, but the record is full of dead ends, real, functioning technologies that worked for centuries and then vanished so completely that modern laboratories with electron microscopes and spectrometers still can't fully bring them back. Today, a rank countdown of the 5 greatest. The rules. Every entry must be historically documented, not legend alone. It must have genuinely worked, and the recreation gap must still exist, at least in part today. Ranking is by how close we've come. Number 5 is nearly solved. Number 1 remains almost total darkness. Along the way, you'll meet an executed inventor, a violin worth $20 million, a blade with impossible chemistry, a 2023 MIT breakthrough that cracked half a mystery, and a weapon so secret that the empire guarding it managed to lose it. And underneath all 5 runs, one uncomfortable question will answer at the end: how does a civilization actually forget something it knows? Number 5 starts with a story about glass and an emperor who understood economics far too well. Number 5, the one that might be a murder story: Vitrum flexile, flexible glass. 3 separate Roman sources, Petronius, Pliny the Elder, and Cassius Dio, record versions of the same event from Emperor Tiberius's reign in the 1st century AD. A craftsman presents the emperor with a drinking bowl of glass, then hurls it to the floor. Instead of shattering, it dents like bronze, and he calmly hammers it back into shape. Tiberius asks one question: does anyone else know how to make this? No, says the inventor, expecting a reward. The emperor orders him executed and his workshop destroyed, reasoning according to the sources that such glass would make gold worth dirt. Now, historians rightly flag this as possibly a moral fable. Pliny himself says the story was more widespread than well attested. But here's the modern twist that keeps it on this list. Material scientists have since created metallic glasses and flexible glass polymer laminates, proving the concept violates no physics, and in 2012, Corning began mass producing bendable willow glass. So the question isn't whether flexible glass is possible, we know it is. It's whether a Roman workshop found a primitive root to it 2,000 years early, and if so, what that recipe was. Nearly solved, forever unverifiable. Number 4, the sound of a Stradivarius. Between roughly 1700 and 1737, Antonio Stradivari built violins in Cremona, Italy, that musicians have treated as irreplaceable for 3 centuries. Instruments now selling for $10 to $20 million. The mystery isn't the woodworking. Luthiers can copy his measurements to 1/10 of a millimeter. It's that the copies, by consensus of most top players, don't sing the same way, and nobody can fully say why. The theories form their own history. Dendrochronologists point to the Maunder Minimum, a solar quiet period from 1645 to 1715 that produced Europe's coldest sustained climate in centuries, slowing tree growth and yielding abnormally dense, even spruce. Chemists who analyzed shavings found the wood was treated, borax, copper, alum, chromium in some samples, likely against woodworm, possibly transforming the acoustics as a side effect. Others credit the varnish, or simply 300 years of aging and playing. Here's the twist that keeps this honest. In blind tests since 2010, professional soloists often couldn't reliably distinguish Strads from top modern violins, and sometimes preferred the new ones. So either the secret is partly a 3-century-old halo effect, or it's real and we've merely masked it by different means. The recipe itself, Stradivari wrote nothing down, still lost. Number 3, true Damascus steel, woods. From roughly 300 BC to the 1700s, blades forged from ingots of Indian wood steel carried a signature no one could fake, flowing water-like patterns in the metal itself, and a reputation partly earned, partly mythologized, for holding a murderous edge while flexing without snapping. The Crusader stories, silk scarves sliced midair, are embellishment. The metallurgy isn't. Then, in the 18th century, production simply stopped. The leading explanation is supply chain death. The specific ores, likely from particular Indian and Sri Lankan mines, carry trace elements, vanadium, molybdenum, tungsten, in tiny amounts that were essential to the pattern-forming process. And when those sources ran out or trade shifted, the technique died with them, because the smiths never knew the trace elements were the active ingredient. They knew the ritual, not the chemistry. The stunning postscript came in 2006 when Peter Pafler's team in Dresden put a genuine 17th century Damascus blade under an electron microscope and found carbon nanotubes and nanowires in the steel, structures we associate with 21st century materials labs, formed accidentally by craftsmen who couldn't have named them. Modern smiths make gorgeous pattern, welded Damascus, and metallurgists have grown convincing words in labs. But an exact verified match to the historical blades, chemistry, structure, and performance together? Still contested, still open. Number 2, the one with the 2023 breakthrough, Roman concrete. The empirical time has stirred for 2 millennia. The Pantheon's dome, unreinforced concrete, poured around 126 AD, still stands, while modern reinforced concrete infrastructure routinely cracks apart in 50 years. Roman harbor piers have sat in seawater, concrete's mortal enemy, for 2,000 years and in places grown stronger. Chemists knew part of the answer: volcanic ash from Pozzuoli reacting with lime and seawater to form rare, stabilizing minerals. But one detail was dismissed for centuries: white lumps of lime scattered through every sample, written off as sloppy mixing. In January 2023, an MIT-led team published a correction. Those lumps are the technology. The Romans, evidence suggests, used quicklime mixed hot, a violent reactive process, deliberately leaving calcium reservoirs throughout the material. When a crack forms and water seeps in, it dissolves the nearest lump, and the solution recrystallizes as calcium carbonate, sealing the crack. Self-healing concrete, by design or by magnificent accident, in antiquity. The team proved it. Their hot mixed recreation healed cracks in 2 weeks. The control crumbled. So why is it still on this list? Because the full Roman system, exact recipes varying by region and purpose, remains only partly mapped, and startups are still struggling to scale the rediscovery. 90% solved after 1,900 years of the answer, sitting in plain sight, labeled as a mistake. Number 1, the technology guarded so well it guarded itself out of existence: Greek fire. From 672 AD, the Byzantine Empire wielded a weapon that decided wars, a liquid pumped through bronze siphons mounted on ships that ignited on contact, clung to hulls and skin, and, by multiple accounts, kept burning on the surface of the sea. It broke 2 Arab sieges of Constantinople in the 670s and again in 717, battles with a fair claim to redirecting European history. And we don't know what it was. Not because no one wrote about it, because the Byzantines built the world's most effective information security around it. The recipe was a state secret at the level of sacred mystery. Emperor Constantine VII wrote that the formula was revealed by an angel and must never leave the imperial family. Production was compartmentalized. The mixers didn't know the siphon design. The siphon engineers didn't know the mixture, and the deployment crews knew neither. It worked perfectly. Enemies captured the apparatus more than once and could do nothing with it. Then it worked too well. Somewhere after the 12th century, as the empire convulsed through crusades and sackings, enough links of the chain died unrecorded that the weapon simply faded from Byzantium's own arsenal. Modern chemists' best reconstruction, crude oil base, pine resin thickener, possibly quicklime or saltpeter tricks, can produce something similar. Whether it's the thing, the only people who could confirm it have been dead for 800 years. 5 technologists, and if you line up their deaths, the pattern is uncomfortable, because it's not stupidity, it's structure. Knowledge died 5 different ways here. By secrecy, Greek fire's security model had a single point of failure, the chain of living minds. By supply chain, Damascus smiths lost their special ore and didn't know it was special. By unwriting, Stradivarius and the Roman concrete masters worked from hand and habit. craft knowledge that no one thought needed a manual, because there will always be apprentices until there weren't. By economics, if the flexible glass story is true, a technology was killed deliberately to protect the market, and by success itself, Roman concrete outlived the need to understand it. The structure stood, so nobody asked why for 19 centuries. Here's the closing thought worth sitting with. Every one of those 5 failure modes exists right now. Critical processes that live in one retiring engineer's head, materials whose performance depends on a source nobody's documented, code that runs the world and that no living person fully understands. We assume our civilization can't lose technology because we have the internet. The Byzantines assumed they couldn't lose Greek fire because they had God. If lost knowledge is your kind of story, this channel digs up a new one every single day. And tomorrow's is about a manuscript that might be the last surviving trace of exactly this kind of death.